Hey friends, we're at another episode of Psycho for Tycho, except this time we're back in a museum again. And you know, museums are always great for reference photos or references to equipment. I'm primarily here because they had a Tonopod Tidewater caboose that is buried in the back that I wanted to try and model for my heritage fleet. But I also model other railroads. I model the Virginia and Truckee. Unfortunately, I don't model the locomotive they're running here because the locomotive I'm running was burned in a fire in 1950. But it's nice to get some reference shots, nice to see a little bit of history, ride a little bit of trains. So we're going to check out the Nevada State Railroad Museum here in Carson City on Psycho for Tycho.
From Tycho, of course.
Alright, but these next few segments I had, my camera went into slow-mo mode, which I guess when you really think about it is kind of cool and dramatic. But I went into the inside of the exhibit and restoration building, which was right next door to the exhibit building, and inside they have a restored and rebuilt McKean motor car. Now, this motor car was built in 1910 by the McKean Motor Company of Omaha, Nebraska, and then was rebuilt again by the Virginia and Truckee in 1932. And it made its last run around 1945 and then became a diner, and then later on an office for Al's Plumbing Supply in Carson City. In 1996, it was donated back to the museum, where an extensive rebuild program began with the trucks and the engine, which was no longer part of this wild-looking monster, and so a lot of things were fabricated from scratch, such as the Caterpillar engine, which replaced the Hall Scott engine. So instead of a gas electrical system, this one uses a diesel hydraulic system. And as you can see here, it's obvious the engineer has to wear some sort of hearing protection with that motor right behind his head. One thing I think that is super cool about the McKean motor car is its steampunk vibe that it brings out, with its Jules Verne freaking arrowhead design, all the way down to these porthole windows that obviously open up for early air conditioning. The car in 2012 was designated as a national landmark, which is really cool. And it was really cool to walk inside and see all this wonderful restoration work they've done both inside and out. From the wood panel interiors to the brass, right down to the seat covers. This was really a cool thing to walk around in, and I literally cannot wait until I show back up at the museum, which is 30 minutes away from me, to just ride it around at even a slow speed. Now, some of you AHM modelers may know what this is, and some of you that search eBay for Virginia and Truckee may also know this. But this is the J.W. Bowker, which was the Virginia City switcher, which was used by the railroad from 1875 up to 1896, where it was sold to the Sierra Nevada Wood and Lumber Company near Truckee. This thing ran until about 1953 and is the sole surviving example of a Baldwin 240 switcher in the United States. Now, a lot of the Virginia and Truckee equipment from the last half of the 19th century is well modeled by AHM, Bachmann, not Tyco as far as I know, but some of the other railroad modeler companies made some pretty decent replicas of early Virginia and Truckee steam equipment, from its 240 to its 440 steam locomotives, or the American. Unfortunately, though, if you're trying to do something in the first half of the 20th century, your best bet is brass, even with passenger cars. As you can see from here, with my Virginia and Truckee number 26, this was a Bachmann that I modified. The combine behind it I modified, and the two cars behind it are brass. And those two cars are really hard to find in brass. Now, a lot of the equipment that resides in the museum owes its preservation to, of all places, Hollywood, as during the 1930s and 40s, the railroad sold off a lot of its turn-of-the-century equipment to Hollywood to be used in westerns of the 30s, 40s, 50s, all the way up until the 1970s. And this also shows that the museum itself has probably the largest contribution of preserved turn-of-the-century, well, turn of the 19th century equipment in existence. Now, the museum itself is not connected to any physical railroad, so this would make for a neat idea to do a nice standalone layout your town can have a railroad museum in the middle of nowhere. The museum itself is open between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Thursday through Monday. So it's closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And is, well, here's the location right here. And the admission, except for special events, is $10 a person. Children are free. Now, the only drawback I've got with this museum, as I didn't really have that much with the Western Pacific Museum, is their gift shop lacks a lot of reference material. There's only like a few books dedicated on the stations and passenger cars, and they're all dedicated to Virginia and Truckee, which is kind of sad because at one point Nevada had 50 railroads in the state alone. The other sad drawback about this cool museum is they don't run their locomotives or any of their rolling stock on the Virginia and Truckee Railway up by Virginia City, which would be also cool. And I hope to see that someday. So as I get this last shot of Nevada County Narrow Gauge number 5, the Tahoe, going around the loop, I'd just like to say thank you, and I'm Psycho for Tycho. Hey friends, I know you're at the end of the video and all that, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out that if you're in Carson City or any of the surrounding neighborhoods, come on down to Mills Park where the Carson City Railroad Association, my model railroad club, happens to be at. We've got both HO scale and N scale. We run modular displays. We also have, during the summer months, a 2-foot tourist railroad that kind of goes around half the park. Membership fee is about $35. If you want to run some trains, come on down. Just let us know. Link in the description, and the link is right here at the bottom. And have a good one. I'm Psycho for Tycho. We'll see you next time.